Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to episode 13 of the Off the Dome podcast. Today we got a very special guest, Mr. Anthony Sorelli. I hope I said that name right.
Yeah, you did. You did. You got it. You nailed it, my man.
Biggest Raptor fan that I know of, and he's also not an obnoxious Raptor fan, which helps a lot. Cause
Y'all got a bad reputation, man. I'm telling you.
The only thing that I'm gonna say is you might be surprised who starts my All-Star game. It might be Lowry, it might be Van Vliet, it might be Boucher at the front court.
Shea,
Just saying, I'm just giving you a heads up.
you got the whole Raptors team out there. We're gonna be talking about that, the All Star, who we have on our All Star teams, the award predictions, the front runners for the awards, and everything like that. And I've also tossed in like a little segment at the end, some of our more surprising teams and the more disappointing teams that we've had so far this year, because there's been a lot of surprises, really, both conferences, everything like that. But we'll start with our All Star. I guess the way I've gone, I've got my five starters on each conference, and then kind of like players who I think deserve recognition. And then I've got like other players who won't be an all-star probably, but still I think deserve recognition for the season that they're having. So why don't we start with you, and let's hear what you got for like the backcourt in the Eastern Conference.
Eastern Conference. All right. I'm gonna give you my full starters list, and then you can kind of come back at me and let me know, because I think the forwards is a lock. Like, I don't think there's any debate in this segment. It's Embiid, Giannis, Durant, and I don't think you can really make a case for anyone else, to be honest. You've got three MVP caliber players with Embiid. When he plays, they win. When he doesn't, they lose. Straight up. He's one of the best players in the East. It's as simple as that. Giannis, MVP candidate. Kevin Durant, he's exactly the same as he was last year. 2 years ago, I should say, when he didn't have his Achilles injury. He's the same guy. Same guy. So I think that's a lock. But for the starters, this is where it gets kind of interesting in the backcourt. So I'm going with Bradley Beal, and they're the worst team by record in the entire NBA, I'm pretty sure, but he leads the league in scoring, and it's not really his fault. It's the players around him. They don't play any defense. 35 points per game, and he wasn't named an All-Star last year. I think we have to put him in our starters, because if the fans don't vote him in, he might not make it. Like, the coaches might not vote him in. And I'm also going with Jaylen Brown too. This one might be a bit surprising, but 27 points per game, 1.5 steals, and Tatum only played 12 games out of 17, so I took him because he's played all 17. And Boston's 10-7, a top 4 seed, and he's averaging the most points for that team. He's been balling out, and kind of a teaser in the future, he might be in my MIP list as well, because he's become a quality star in the league this year. So what do you think? Do you agree with those picks?
I mean, I've got everything except for Jaylen Brown. I put Embiid, Giannis, and KD, of course, in the front court. Hard to go against that. I put Bradley Beal in there. Like, his team is ass, but that's got nothing to do with Bradley Beal. And sure, if he was playing on a better team, I don't think like there's no way he's putting up 35 points a game if he's playing on a playoff caliber team. But regardless, 35 points is 35 points. There's a lot of players playing on shitty teams that are nowhere near as good as Bradley Beal. I put him in there. And I put Kyrie Irving in there instead of Jaylen Brown. I think Brown's been having a great year, and yeah, we're going to be talking about him when we get to the Most Improved Player of the Year awards, because he's definitely a contender for that at this moment in time. I think like him and James Harden, they're kind of the two other guards that you could put those two guys in there to start. I wouldn't be mad at you, but for me, I'm gonna take Kyrie because other than him just disappearing from the Brooklyn Nets for like 2 weeks or whatever, he's been balling out. So yeah, I agree with you there. And for the West, I'll start with my Western.
I just got a comment quickly about. I like your pick. I like your pick for Kyrie. I respect that. The only thing I have against the Kyrie pick is that, first of all, he's missed a few games there with all this personal stuff, but I'm not going to hold that against him. The thing that actually takes a hit is the fact that he's playing next to Harden, and he could be the third option for that team, and that's crazy to me. And that's just the tough thing for me, is it's like almost him and Harden cancel each other out. But yeah, I think they still both definitely make the All-Star game.
Okay, but like Kyrie's, you could argue he's a third option right now, but his numbers are like pretty similar to what Jaylen Brown's putting up, and Brown's the first option. I guess being the third option on the Brooklyn Nets is a little bit different, because the third option is like you've got only those three players scoring. It's not like the third option on a normal team where there's a big gap between the third option and the fourth option in Brooklyn. Um, But yeah, I mean Kyrie, Jalen, whoever you want to put in there. I think
I
James.
mean, Kyrie's kind of like a two-way, right? It's like him and James Harden are both two-ways with each other.
Yeah,
They're both kind of second options.
Do you think that Harden? I think by the time the All Star game hits, I think Harden will be deserving of a starter, of being a starter. I just don't think that there'll be enough votes in for him by the time that people start seeing, oh shit, this man's averaging a triple double, because that's what he's doing.
Houston stuff takes a hit on his reputation a little bit, and that kind of affects it. But he's averaging 12 assists per game. Like, let's not forget that. That's crazy. That's ridiculous. Like, he's still as good as he's always been. He's still an MVP.
And I really like Brooklyn, man. Like the thing is with Brooklyn, they just give up so many fucking points. Like 160 points per game is stupid. Like the other teams that are giving up as many points as Brooklyn are like the Washington Wizards and I think like the Timberwolves or some shit like that. Like just terrible teams are giving up more points than Brooklyn. But when you got those three guys, GG. Anyway, Western Conference. Like the East, for me, the front court it's a lock. I got Kawhi, LeBron, and Nikola Jokic. Paul George is having a great year. I'm not trying to take anything away from Paul George. I've been seeing people put Christian Wood in there. I think Christian Wood, he's a great player. Been having a career year. I love him to death, but he's not on this level yet. And for the backcourt, I've gone with Luka and Luka and Stephen Curry. Damian Lillard is one of those guys who definitely has an argument to be up there instead of Luka Doncic, I think.
Yeah, I agree with your front court. It's Kawhi, it's LeBron, it's Jokic. I don't get the Christian Wood argument. I know he's an MIP and he should be an All-Star, or at least in the race to being an All-Star, but I don't think he's better than Kawhi, LeBron, or Jokic by any means. And the guards, I agree. Steph Curry's a lock because he's Steph Curry. But instead of Luka, I went with Dame, and the only reason why is because both these teams have been disappointing, but I just feel like the Mavs have been more disappointing, and that's why I took Luka off my ballot for a starter wise. But I do understand the pick for him there. And honestly, we should also give a shout out to CJ McCollum because he was having a career year, and he would have been in consideration too because he was the best player on Portland while he was playing and while he was healthy, and he's going to miss a month, so he might not even end up being an all-star, unfortunately.
Yeah, I was gonna say that that was gonna be the thing I was gonna segue into next. Players who we don't have in our starting lineups, but definitely deserve some recognition and will probably be bench players in the All Star game. And a guy like C.J. McCollum and a guy like Mike Conley as well, who's having a great year in Utah. Not quite good enough to be an All Star, I don't think, in the West. But those two guys have never made an All Star team, which is ridiculous. Especially CJ, of course, but a lot of people don't know Mike Conley, man. Back in Memphis, he was a straight baller, and I think it's kind of the lack of skill, or really how am I trying to say it? If those two players, if Connolly and CJ McCollum had their same careers in the Eastern Conference, they would be multiple time All Stars. But when you're in the West and it's every single year, you can only get six guards. You're just not. I mean, they're just not good enough. As good as they are.
Yeah, we saw this firsthand with DeRozan, right? He was a five-time All-Star with the Raptors, or four-time All-Star. However many he ended up winning, and then he goes to the West, and he's just hasn't been an All-Star since. And this year, also mentioning honorable mentions, I don't think he makes it either. Unfortunately, even at 21-7, he's having a great year, and they're 11-8. And honestly, it sucks that I couldn't put him in my reserves because I just couldn't see it. I was just like, maybe he's at the end, but it depends how many reserves you put in. Is it like 7 reserves? Is that how many guys you get?
I'm not sure. I didn't even pay attention. I just wrote out some for 5 players. But speaking of DeMar DeRozan, by the way, I'm repping the DeMar DeRozan drip in honor of us being the 4th seed in the Western Conference right now, the San Antonio Spurs. We are balling out. And I know we're going to be like the 10th seed in a month from now. That's just how the Spurs go. But right now, I'm having my moment. I don't know when we're going to be this good, this high in the standings. It might be a few years. So I'm going to enjoy this moment until we play the Memphis Grizzlies tonight. And I hope we beat them. They haven't played since the 18th or some shit. But DeMar DeRozan, man, I hated this guy last year and the year before because we gave up Kawhi and Danny Green for him. But this year, he's clutch as fuck. And I love that. Other players that I had Dame, CJ, Donovan Mitchell, DeMar, and Devin Booker as honorable mentions, reserves, I guess you could say, for the Western Conference in the backcourt. What Donovan Mitchell's been doing in Utah is great. By the way, Utah didn't even have Donovan Mitchell last night against against Dallas, and they just destroyed the Mavericks. That team is.
They haven't had him a couple games now, and they've been just winning. They're on a 10-game win streak. And in the reserves, I have 11 now. I have Donovan Mitchell and Gobert as locks in my reserves because they've both been amazing. They've both been amazing. And Doncic is in my reserves too. Paul George is in my reserves. And I put Brandon Ingram, even though I think Zion will probably end up getting in from a fan vote perspective. But I just think Ingram's been a teeny bit better, in my opinion.
It's crazy that we haven't mentioned Anthony Davis yet this year, because the talent is there. You look at Anthony Davis, you think that's the top 7 people. I mean, I was saying he's probably a top 5 player in the NBA, but he hasn't been off to a very good start this year. I put guys like, Karl Anthony Towns, he's been putting up good numbers, but he's on a terrible team. Christian Wood, I had to shout out. Paul George is having he's having an MVP caliber year. I mean, really, when you look at how good Paul George is playing, I wouldn't say right now I wouldn't put him as the MVP favorite, but he's definitely in the running. And Rudy Gobert has to be a lock. The way the points per game isn't there, and Shaq's always going to rail him for only scoring 13 points a game or whatever it is. But it's the value he brings, and I didn't understand why the Jazz paid him that much money this offseason. But he is now that I'm looking at it, this man, the team really revolves around Rudy Gobert, and that I have to put Gobert in my.
Especially on the defensive end too. That's like the big thing. And Anthony Davis only averaging 22 and 8, coming out the gate slow, especially after putting a stamp on last year's playoff run. He was a big guy. Hit that big shot against.
It was great. Yeah.
He hit that big shot in the finals. He hit a big shot against the Nuggets too in Jokic's face. And 22 and 8 is just not enough. I think he ends up being an all-star just because of reputation, but he's going to be on the outskirts looking in terms of, I don't think he's a lock for a starter, and he probably ends up sliding in somewhere late in the reserves.
Yeah, let's go to the Eastern Conference now. Before we start, is Taco Fall? Is he going to get voted in? Because I know he's going to get a lot of votes, but do you think it'll be a...
There's always one guy that gets it. Always one guy gets like a shit ton of votes. That's just a terrible player. And Taco, I love Taco. He's fun. I wish the Raptors low-key draft him because he's just funny and he's fun. But I mean, he might get 50, like the 50% fan vote. He'll probably get enough. But I think when the players vote and the media vote, it will end up not being a real thing.
That's the thing. Sometimes it's fun. Like you see the players, or you see when the fan vote comes in. Like a lot of times it's just terrible. Like you see some players who should be all-stars not even in the top 10, when like LaMelo Ball is probably gonna be like 4th or some shit like that. And so sometimes I'm like, yo, thank God the media and the players are also voting on this shit. But and I think I remember it was a few years ago. I think Zaza Pachulia actually had enough votes, but he got vetoed out because it was just a joke. Like I think it was like 2016 or 2017 before the Kawhi Leonard thing. Zaza Pachulia I think had like the second most votes or something in the West, but I believe it was vetoed. I might be wrong, but I remember Zaza.
No, you're right. No, you are right. That 100% happened. I don't remember what year it was, but that was hilarious. And that just shows the way fans vote. It's just sometimes it's just a meme. They just don't give a shit. They're just like, I'll just vote for whoever I think's the funniest player I can vote in, and they end up getting a shit ton of votes. And then it's like, are they like, is Zaza really going to be an all-star? Are you kidding? Like, this is stupid.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, but at the same time, I really disagree with the fact that Dwayne Wade and Dirk Nowitzki got credited with an All-Star game appearance last year, I think it was, or the year before, whenever they retired, because they just got led into the All-Star game because it was their last year, and now they have an extra All-Star game appearance even though they didn't deserve it. I don't fuck with that at all. I just want to...
It kind of fucks with history a little bit, right? Because now you're like, when you're stacking up Dirk and all these guys against like, your Tim Duncans, they got that extra All-Star game in their favor, even though they were... let's be real, they weren't that good at the end of their career going down the stretch.
Anyway, in the backcourt for the Eastern Conference, other than Kyrie and Beal, I already shouted out Jaylen Brown, James Harden. I put Trae Young, Zach LaVine, and Malcolm Brogdon and Colin Sexton. No one's going to talk. Malcolm Brogdon's going off this year, I think, in Indiana. Trae, Zach LaVine, Colin Sexton. I don't think there's a lot of explanation there. Those are kind of the players that I had that I think all have a really good chance of being all-stars, other than Malcolm Brogdon, just because he's not popular.
Just on that note, I had the exact same guards. Like, straight up, I had all those guys listed. The two that I picked from my bench were Trae Young and James Harden, and Kyrie, too, actually. I kind of cheated. I put 3 in there. And then, like I said, I had Beal and Jaylen Brown in my starters. But then on my honorable mentions list, I had Brogdon because he's been balling out, but I don't think that
It's been enough
The
for
Pacers
him.
get 2 All-Stars. They just won't get it, unfortunately. And Sexton, too, averaging 25 a game. He's taken a big-time leap. And Zach LaVine, too. Like, the Bulls, despite having a bad record in general, they've been better this year than they have in years past. And he's a big reason why. He's kind of fueled that offense, and he's just been, honestly, like, amazing. He's just been amazing.
I mean, it's crazy how Zach LaVine, a few years ago, he was known for just being a dunker, and now you see him and he's putting up. He has games where he jacks up or he hits 7, 8 threes, and it's like he's an amazing shooter. He might, I think, yeah, my prediction, he will be the first ever player to win the dunk contest and 3-point contest. I think he'll win the 3-point contest one day. Um, yeah. How about front court? Who were your kind of honorable mentions for the front court in the East?
So front court, I'm gonna start with my bench that I picked the 3 guys that I think will make it is Sabonis, Tatum, and Middleton. I think Tatum's gonna end up racking up games down the stretch. That'll get him in there just by reputation. And then Bam Adebayo too is another guy that I think should be in there, despite the Heat are like 6-12 or something crazy. I'm just like, man, this team is not
They've been injured in COVID. Yeah.
injured, and the health safety protocols have really screwed them. But I think Bam's been consistent. He's been really good, and against the Raptors, he was balling out. So I think I give him the nod there. And you might be surprised with this one, but Tobias Harris, 20 points per game for the 1-seeded team. Ben Simmons has been disappointing. I'd take Tobias over him right now because he's been balling out. And Ben Simmons is like, considering what our expectation was of him, which is like 28 and 8 at least, he's been averaging like 12, 8, and 8, and his offensive game has been really bad. Unfortunately, he will get back to what we know him to be, which is like a perennial all-star. But I think this year he's been really slow to start.
Yeah, I forget. Was he? I think he was He was a starter, wasn't he? At least once, I think.
Wasn't he? Yeah, I believe so. And he's definitely
I think
made
he
the
might
All
have been
NBA
also
team
started.
before as well. So
Yeah.
he's known as like a top 6 guard in the entire NBA. But this year he's
Yeah.
been just not good. It's just been bad with Doc Rivers' system, right? Tobias Harris has played with him with the Clippers. They have that. He just knows how to use Tobias Harris. But a guy like Ben Simmons, it's tough to use him next to Embiid when you want him in the block all the time. That's what Doc wants. He's like, throw him in the block, throw him in the block. Where's Ben Simmons? He's out in the 3-point line. Teams are just doubling, moving away from him, and you need Ben Simmons in the dunker spot, playing with the bench unit a little more, I think.
Yeah, I think anything that we've taken, if we can take anything away from the Philadelphia 76ers this year, is that there was that conversation in years past. Should the 76ers move on with Embiid or Ben Simmons? Like, if you could only pick one, I think it's pretty definitive. Joel Embiid is their guy because, like you said, he draws a double team every single time. And when you just give up, when pretty much Ben Simmons is an easy double team because there's no risk because he's not going to hit a 3-pointer on you.
Yeah, what do you think Philly should do? Do you think they
I
should
think
just keep with this roster right now, or do you think they should make a move?
Roster's working. Like, they're balling out right now, but Bradley Beal's available.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like,
Trade,
just
man.
give him Ben Simmons. Screw it, go 1-for-1, add him to that roster. Like, that'll be a
Ben
good team.
Simmons,
I don't
Ben
think Philly
Simmons
fans will like
and
that though.
Ben Simmons and Russell Westbrook, that's a nightmare. God.
I didn't even think about it.
No.
They gotta trade. They gotta trade. They gotta trade Westbrook though too and get him out of there. I don't know what he's worth. I don't know if a team would want him, but it seems like executives apparently said that they think he's on the way down. So I don't think front offices are gonna want to trade for a guy that's making 40 mil a year who, hasn't been playing that good.
Yeah, I think like Miami, Washington's record though, it's heavily like it doesn't reflect how good they are because they have missed a lot of players. My guy Davis Bertans is out for a little bit, and
Your MIP pick.
my MIP, he's still got a chance, bro. Don't worry.
I don't think so. He's not passing Christian Wood. I'm telling you.
All right. For my front court, my reserves, my honorable mentions, I had Andre Drummond, which I'm surprised you didn't say. This man, if anybody out there if anyone has Andre Drummond on their fantasy team, like he is a cheat code. It's ridiculous the amount of rebounds this guy grabs. I put Vucevic, I put Sabonis, Tatum, and Gordon Hayward is having a great year after an offseason of getting very much disrespected, myself included, because he got a fat contract with Michael Jordan, and he's balling out. I think he's surprised a lot of people, Gordon Hayward.
Hayward's been good. He's back to looking like a form of himself, not as athletic, not as but he still plays a lot of bully ball. That's kind of what he does. He goes in, he drives. It's a little slow, but he likes to take that little mid range kind of jump shot falling back, and he can push anyone out of the way. And against the Raptors, I noticed, and because I don't watch a lot of Charlotte games, obviously, but when they played the Raptors, I noticed he was balling out, and I was just really impressed with the way he's been kind of leading that team to a respectable record in the
Yeah.
East.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, and I've got other players here who deserve some recognition. I put Bam Adebayo. Clint Capella is having a nice year. He's been going off lately in
He's
Atlanta,
had like two 20-plus point rebound games or
Yeah.
20 rebound plus games. That's crazy.
and he's been getting hella blocks too. I put Jeremy Grant, the Detroit Pistons. This man is he's got a chance at most improved player right now. He's putting up like 23 points a game, and people don't remember back in when the Nuggets made their 3-1 comeback against the Clippers. Kawhi Leonard was getting strapped by Jeremy Grant. I mean, this guy can play some good defense. I put Chris Middleton. He could be a reserve. He could easily make it. I just don't think I'm not as high on him. I think as most people. Miles Turner. This guy's averaging 4.1 blocks per game, and it's like the other night against Charlotte in the loss, he put up 2 blocks, which was the first time since January the 2nd that he got less than 3 blocks in a game. This man's ridiculous. Your guy Fred VanVleet. Shout out Fred VanVleet. I think he's been going off lately. I don't watch a lot of Raptors games. They're just always on TV, but I think they're boring to watch. I'm not going to lie.
Yeah, I just can't give a Raptor an all-star nod when their record's as bad as it's been. Especially when all three of their best players have kind of canceled each other out. They're all at like 19 points per game. And the Raptors, they're really inconsistent too. They play a game really well, and then they'll come back and they'll just play terrible. They lost to the Kings yesterday. They had 3 terrible quarters. But yeah, I'm actually disappointed in myself that I forgot Drummond because that's also, I think, a lock too to be an all-star. And just think about what they traded for last year to get him. Like, they traded a 2nd-round pick and John Henson, and I don't even remember what else. Like, basically a bunch of bad stuff, and you got back an all-star. Now they're going to be able to flip him for something nice. I think apparently they're going to buy him out though, but I don't know like what they're actually going to do there. That seems stupid to me. I just don't get that.
I think that they know that they're probably not going to be a playoff team this year. Like, they're doing better than they're supposed to be doing right now. So if they can get the highest draft pick possible, and if that means buying out probably, I mean, your second best player, I think at this point. I saw this thing though that people were saying that the Brooklyn Nets could pick up Andre Drummond, which, I mean, I think that's GG. I think that's game over. Give them
That would be crazy. That would be. Oh my God.
with the current rosters, I think the Lakers are the favorites to win the championship right now, and Bradley Beal, of course, is in rumors with the Lakers, as is every free agent. Every single free agent.
If he gets traded somewhere, that team's a contender for sure.
Any person who's ever been on the trading block has been rumored to go to the Lakers, so we don't quite know if that's for real or not. But other players, really quickly, John Morant hasn't played a lot, but when he has, he's been good. Victor Oladipo, been surprising a lot of people in Houston. My guy, DeJounte Murray, this man is head and shoulders above Lonzo Ball. I don't care what none of y'all say. I shouldn't even say that. That's disrespect to to DeJounte Murray. It's a fact at this point. This man, I watched him. This guy can play defense. He can't shoot for shit, but he's a strap. I love watching him play. De'Aaron Fox
said like a real Spurs fan.
Yeah, exactly. And Zion Williamson's my last guy, who he's been having a pretty good year this year, and people forget it's only his 2nd year in the NBA. I think it seems like he's been in the league a lot longer because, well, he's been covered since he was like 14 years or like since he was in like grade 10 or 11. So it just feels like we've all already Zion Williamson is old news, but he's only a sophomore. He's only played 40 games in his NBA career.
Man, you went off on a tangent there. We started with the East forwards, and then you went to naming Fred VanVleet, and now you're going to the West.
That was everybody.
I'm just like, whoa, what is happening?
I didn't have a lot of people in the West. I just had like Depot, Ja, DeJounte, De'Aaron Fox, and Zion. But yeah, the East has a lot of great players in the front court, I think, that aren't going to be all-stars, but they definitely deserve some recognition. Anyway, that's anything else you want to add there for the all-star teams?
No, I think we nailed it. I'm just excited to see what they really do here, because I'm assuming they're just going to name their all-stars and not really do anything else, right? Like, they're not going to – like, hopefully they don't play a game. If they do that, that would kind of not really make much sense, because there's like a 10% chance one player has COVID and it ruins the next 2 weeks for the NBA season. But there's rumors that they're going to play in Atlanta. So I really hope that doesn't happen.
Yeah, we'll see. Because if all those players from different cities all over the country or Canada, no, because Tampa's playing in because they're playing in Tampa. But yeah, players from all over the different country. That shit could spread. Anyway, I've probably got like maybe 30 minutes left that I'm available before I have to go to work. But let's go through the awards so far. Front runners. Let's start with the MVP. Who is your top three? Do you have a top three? You just have one guy for the MVP award right now.
I got top three. Number one is Embiid, and he's my lock right now for MVP. Not for the entire season, but right now I think he's been the best player by far.
Yeah.
And then number two, I'm going with LeBron because LeBron's LeBron. They're top seed in the West. I couldn't really think of anyone in Utah who I think I would put in my top three just because I feel like they're just a team that does it by kind of like how the Raptors when they were the one seed. They just have a bunch of guys that are really good, a couple all-stars. But number three, I put Durant because 30 points per game. He's been balling. They're the second seed now. They're slowly climbing up the rankings. And Durant's been amazing, averaging over 30 a game and leading that team right now.
You didn't say Nikola Jokic. Did you not say? You didn't say Jokic?
11-8 record. 11-8 record.
Bro, this team's going off now. Okay, the thing with Jokic is
They have been going off.
they've been going off lately.
Who would you put him ahead of those? Out of those three guys, who would you put him ahead of though?
Everybody.
LeBron.
Everybody.
He's your number one pick.
I got him.
What?
That's because, bro, I have this man on fantasy basketball, and even when his team is losing, this man will get me 80 fantasy points a fucking night. He is a.
That's not how MVP works, though. It's not who gets you the most fantasy
I don't
points.
care.
If that was the case, Drummond would win
Absolutely.
MVP.
Dude, I have a connection with Jokic. I have to support him, bro. He's my guy. I love me some Nikola Jokic. Like Denver, they started off terribly, but they're 8-2 in their last 10. If it hadn't been for the San Antonio Spurs being so good, they would have won 6 in a row. Sorry, but Nikola Jokic is balling. Second, I've got Joel Embiid. Third, Kevin Durant, because yeah, like you said, KD, he's on par with his MVP year in 2014. And people like it's a common discussion about like who's if anyone had like the one best season of the 2010s. Like 2014, Kevin Durant is up there with like some of the LeBron James seasons, some of the Steph Curry seasons. Like that 1 year that KD had is one of the best we've seen in recent history, and he's on par to be on the same level. If Bradley Beal wasn't playing on a shitty team, KD would be leading the NBA in points per game right now, I think.
The only thing with MVP is usually it's like a top 2 or 3 team in each conference, right? So you're looking at the teams, right? You picked Embiid for Philly, right? That makes sense. And then you take like LeBron, that makes sense. He's a top 3 team. But 5th seed, 11-8, like it's just not enough yet, despite him being like balling out. He's absolutely been balling out, but I think he needs to slide up to at least surpass into the top 3 seeds before he's a top 3 candidate for me.
5th seed sounds bad, but he's got the same record as the 4th seed right now. So it's like he's pretty much like he's got the same record as 4th. Like he's up there in the upper echelon. But yeah, I think historically top 3. Other than the 1 year Russell Westbrook won it, and that was as much. I think Westbrook definitely deserved it, but the narrative that year really carried him for it.
Yeah, narrative's a big factor too. Narrative's a huge factor.
Narrative this year is all Luka and LeBron. I don't get like I saw this thing on I think it was ESPN where it's like the front runners for MVP. How the fuck is Luka Doncic a front runner for MVP right now? I don't like LeBron. I see.
He's not even in the conversation right now. He just isn't. Like just
when your team isn't even a playoff team. Yeah.
Their team's terrible, honestly. Like right now, they've been so disappointing.
Yeah. Defensive player of the year. I'll start with this. My guy Miles Turner. He gets criminally underrated every year. 4 fucking blocks a game, which is stupid. I got Miles Turner, Rudy Gobert, and then Rudy Gobert second, and then third I've gone with Capella or Kawhi Leonard, one of those two guys. I'm leaning more towards Kawhi. People forget Kawhi made his name in the NBA by being a lockdown defender, most notably in the 2014 NBA Finals. And I put an asterisk next to Jarrett Allen because I've been watching him much in Cleveland, but in Brooklyn, Jarrett Allen was pretty much the only defensive player that the Brooklyn Nets had and did a damn good job in the paint. So yeah, those are my picks for defensive player of the year.
I hate the defensive player of the year award because it's so hard to like measure who's had a huge defensive impact.
Stats don't mean a lot.
I get your argument for Larry. What's his name? Miles Turner, but 4 blocks a game is crazy. Like that's a ridiculous counting stat, but it's just at the same time you're like they don't even have like a top 5 defensive rating. So you're like what do these blocks actually translate to in terms of team defensive success? And Rudy Gobert is my number 1. They're the top defense, the top team. The top team, I got to give him his respect. 80 is my second pick because same thing. They got a top 3 defense. And they're the 2 or 3 seed in the Western Conference, one of the best teams in the NBA. I couldn't think of a third player. I really couldn't. Like I didn't have a third one, but do you know who's leading the league in steals per game right now?
I literally looked at the stat the other day. No, I know it. I think he's white. I think, right?
Yep, he's white. He's a white man.
Fuck no, I know this guy. Fucking say his name. I'm gonna.
Larry Nance Jr.
Larry Nance
2.2
Jr.,
steals per game. He's my third pick because I don't give a shit. He's my third pick. 2.2 steals per game, and they have a really good defensive rating too. Actually, surprisingly, and I know he's not the reason. It's Drummond, but I'm just gonna give it to him because why not?
Yeah, fuck it. I'm gonna change my pick for Miles Turner. I'm gonna give Rudy Gobert this one because the Utah, like, in this day and age, the Utah Jazz are winning basketball games by playing good defense, not just by outscoring their opponent. They're holding. I think the Lakers are giving up only like 104 points per game, which is crazy. I think that's the best in the league. But after that, the Jazz are giving up like 106, which like literally 7 years ago, if you give up 106 points per game, you're not making the playoffs. You're fucked. Like that, because that's like
the game's changed. The game's changed a lot. It's whether it's good or bad. That's still a personal preference.
I think that's Steph Curry's influence, man. Like the 3-point shooting, obviously, and that's just Steph Curry, bro. Anyway, most improved player. I'll start with mine. I can't really pick one because I think Jaylen Brown's kind of the front runner right now. But he had a really good year. Like he had a good year last year, right? So it's not like it's out of nowhere. I think Darius Garland, when you look at advanced stats and metrics, Garland was statistically literally probably the worst player in the NBA last year. He was ass. When you look at like the value over replacement players, stuff like that, he was bad. He was trash, and this year he's balling out. Was injured for a little bit. But I got Darius Garland, Jaylen Brown, Colin Sexton as well, and Jeremy Grant.
Those are great picks. Those are really great picks. I think both guards have an argument for sure in Cleveland. Like they've both been playing really good and taking the leap this year. Garland's a great pick. I went with Christian Wood because 23 points per game. He's become.
I didn't even say Christian Wood. Fuck yeah.
And he's my number one for most improved. And it's like not even close for me. I think he's number one by a mile. But Jaylen Brown's my second one, and the reason why is because I think the leap from good to great is one of the hardest leaps in the NBA, and I think he's doing it right now. And he does it on both ends too. Like 1.5 steals, like I said, he's added some assists in there, some rebounds, and once again, 27 points. That's a lot for Jaylen Brown. I didn't think he was this good. Like I did not expect this. Jeremy Grant, I expected him to take a jump, but I didn't think he'd be this good too. So I have him and SGA also as a honorable mention in there. But Christian Wood's my front runner.
Yeah, I don't know. I didn't even write Christian Wood down here for honorable mentions, but he definitely. I think I'll probably put Christian Wood that probably is as a favorite right now. I just slipped my mind when I was making this list. But the thing I like most about Christian Wood is that he's like his stats probably aren't as good as Jaylen Brown's or some of these other guys, but he just seems like a way more complete player than most players in the NBA. Like I don't really see a flaw in his game. Like when I watch him, he looks like a veteran, and he's a young guy, but he looks like he's. I don't know. It's hard to explain, but I just really feel confident when I see him with the basketball. Like he's got his game is really well put together.
And when he stacks up against the best centers in the NBA, when he plays head to head against them, he's really good. Like he's proven he's like almost as good as these guys. Like he's almost on the level of these elite centers in the NBA, just a little bit lower than that. But yeah, like you said, I like the way he's been playing this year. He's been very impressive.
It's weird. I don't even think of Christian Wood as a center. Like when I think of Christian Wood, I think of like a small forward or something like that.
I think he's like a 4 or 5, but I think he's like a small ball 5. He can spread the floor. He's a good modern 5 in my opinion.
Yeah, Sixth Man of the Year. We got 3 more awards to go through. Sixth Man of the Year. Let's have you start.
Alrighty. Jordan Clarkson is winning this award. 18 points per game. That's ridiculous. He's been a big offensive weapon for Utah. Been a big offensive weapon and is one of the big reasons that they've been so successful. Like we said, when Donovan Mitchell goes out and he's not playing in a couple of games, the last few games, he steps up and he plays really good at the guard position. He scores a lot of points. He doesn't do much else, but that's not what Sixth Man of the Year award is for. It's just who's the guy off the bench who gives you that spark, and he's the guy I had. I couldn't think of anyone else. My only other pick because I made this list pretty quick, but my only other pick that I wanted to give respect to was Chris Boucher of the Toronto Raptors. And even though they haven't had a great season, his advanced stats are ridiculous. He's like up there with like Joel Embiid and Nikola Jokic and PER and win shares per 48 minutes. Like when he's out there, they're just a better team. He can shoot the 3, and he's one of the. I think he's like top 3 in the NBA in blocks per game. He's like over 2 blocks per game. He's a really complete player, and a couple of years ago he won MVP and Defensive Player of the Year in the G League, and he's been showing out why he's a really talented player. 28 years old. People don't know he's that old, but he's like a very solid player.
Sixth man of the year. I can't believe you didn't say my man. Can't believe it. First of all, Jordan Clarkson, easy. There's no debate. Jordan Clarkson, sixth man of the year. But you couldn't think of anyone else. Bro, Patty fucking Mills. This man is a demigod on the Spurs. And I'm not trying to, I'm very cautious to be, to kind of what's the word? When you're biased toward your team, I'm very cautious. I always think the Spurs are going to lose. I go into every game thinking the Spurs are going to lose. I think my team is trash. But on this one, Patty Mills, 17 points a game coming off the bench. He's a spark plug, and his team is 4th in the West. They've been surprising everybody.
17 points per game. I did not know he was balling out that much. I knew Greg Popovich gave him the green light, but I didn't think he was taking it to that.
You know what they call him? I just found out. You know what they call Patty Mills? They got 2 names: the Thunder from Down Under, because he's from Australia, and Kangaroo Kobe. That Kangaroo Kobe. That's the best nickname in the NBA. I don't care what you say. Shout out to the boy Patty Mills.
That's a great pick. I'll throw him in there. Chris Boucher, I think, deserves respect too. How
about Derrick Rose?
Derrick Rose, is he coming off the bench? Come off the bench?
I saw I was browsing Google or whatever, most points per game coming off the bench. D Rose, he was up there. I don't know how many games he's coming off the bench, but I can check.
That's a good pick too, because I think you got to play more than 50% of your games off the bench, or it doesn't really count. So. He's a good pick too. He's another guy, but you always forget about him that he's on Detroit, and a team could use him, right? Like you look at the Clippers, a team that needs a point guard. They could use him. They could pick him up. He'd be great. Or even the Lakers could use a guy like that too. If you swap Schroeder for him, I think Derrick Rose is a better player than Schroeder, but I don't know if they do that. So I think Derrick Rose is another good guy. I think Schroeder's starting as well, so he's kind of out of contention, and yeah, so I think that's kind of the way that mine rounds out.
Derrick Rose hasn't started a single game this year, so he's coming off the bench every day. I think Eric Gordon of the Houston Rockets deserves a shout out every year. Eric Gordon, consistent off the bench. Rookie of the year. I think sixth man of the year and rookie of the year, those two at this moment in time are locks, in my opinion. There's not a lot of debate to be had. Jordan Clarkson for sixth man of the year, and LaMelo Ball, right now, rookie of the year.
It's hard to give him that because
that was my pick.
Yeah, it seems like all the hype's around LaMelo Ball, so it seems basic to pick LaMelo Ball, but he's got the hype for a reason. I got LaMelo. Wiseman's been having a good year. Anthony Edwards, that's his name, yeah, Anthony Edwards. He's been having a good year. He's on a terrible team, which is probably helping his stats. And that one guy in Sacramento, I can't say this name, Halliburton or whatever his name is. Yeah, he's no one knew about him. This guy came out of nowhere.
He had a lot of hype actually coming out of college. Some people, there was a few people out there who were saying he's the best prospect out of everyone, but
okay.
That's kind of the way it goes. But yeah, those are great picks. What?
Do you know when he was drafted?
I think he was in the 12, 13 range or somewhere in that spot. But yeah, rookie of the year, LaMelo Ball is a lock for me too. 11, 6, and 6 off the bench in 24 minutes per game. We knew he was a raw player, but he's come in and shown that he's not as raw as we expected. He's flashy and he's got all the hype, like you said. Tyrese Halliburton's my number 2 pick. He's a poised guy off the bench. You see him come in and he's just so calm. He can hit clutch threes. He's just such a ready NBA player, and I think he has superstar level potential. He could be better than De'Aaron Fox from what he's shown already. And that might be crazy to say, but he's got a high ceiling. He's got a very high ceiling. And James Wiseman too, 12 and 6. I think he benefits a lot from playing next to Steph Curry because he doesn't get much scrutiny, right? He's playing on this team. He's got a superstar next to him who can take the blame when they play bad. So it's a good spot for him to slowly climb up those ranks there.
Yeah, Wiseman before the year started was my pick for rookie of the year. Right now, he wouldn't win it. He definitely it's obviously not over or anything like that. But that's a good point. A lot of these rookies, LaMelo Ball, or really LaMelo Ball especially, when the Hornets play bad, LaMelo Ball's gonna get the finger pointed at him. If the Warriors play bad, people were criticizing or questioning Stephen Curry's legacy. They're like, oh, Curry still has a lot to prove. I didn't think Curry was gonna be that good without Klay Thompson. He's balling out, but his team is not doing very well. So Yeah, but yeah, I mean, you're right about James Wiseman. How about Coach of the Year? Coach of the Year is another one I'm excited for.
All right, I'm excited for this one. Actually, I'll start this one. So my number one pick, I kind of flip flopped here, but I'm going with Quinn Schneider because
Yeah.
they have the best record in the NBA. He's a great coach. We've known that the last few years. He's always a guy that's in contention too because Utah's got kind of that system that's next man up, kind of like the Boston Celtics. They have that next man up mentality. Same thing with the Raptors too. Even the Spurs as well. They've all got that same kind of system in place there. My second pick is Doc Rivers. They've got the best record in the East right now. He's been really instrumental in making them play good basketball, which we haven't seen from them in a few years now, which
Yeah.
gets me excited for them this postseason. I think they've got a lot of expectations now with the way they've been playing. And third, a shout out to your team, Greg Popovich, 11-8. They've just been getting so much offensive production from all these guys. You know, they've got DeJounte Murray who's been balling out. They were a team that people didn't expect to make the playoffs at all, and they're 11-8, like you said, the 4 seed. They're another big surprise team. I also think those are kind of my three that rounded out. And yeah, Popovich deserves some respect this year. People thought he was going to retire, but he's like, hell no, I'm bringing this team back, baby.
The top three I agree with: Quinn Snyder, Doc Rivers, Greg Popovich. Really, you could switch Pop and Doc Rivers just because the Spurs were not supposed to be this good. Quinn Snyder, I think, is a lock for number one. A few years ago, he was in the conversation when Utah was doing pretty good. Even last year, he's Utah Jazz are always sort of that team, that 3 or 4 seed. And I'm starting to like, I'm not comparing. Okay, before I say this, I'm not saying that Gobert and Donovan Mitchell are going to repeat the kind of success that the Utah Jazz were able to repeat during the 80s and 90s. But I'm seeing a lot of similarities between that guard and center duo and the guard and center duo of Stockton and Malone back in the day. Of course, Gobert isn't the scorer that Karl Malone was, but Malone's not the defender that Rudy Gobert is. And, it's really interesting because the way Utah is, Utah historically, they're one of the best franchises when you look at regular season wins, playoff appearances, all that stuff. Utah, they've been really good for a really long time, and it looks like they're going to be good for a really long time in the future. And it's maybe with this duo they can finally win a championship. And I'm cheering for Utah right now. If other than out of the reasonable contenders right now, Utah is the team I want to see win a championship. I mean, in the recent future, Quinn Snyder's my guy for sure.
Yeah. And it's not just those two guys, too, right? They've got so much depth on that team. Bogdanovich was a really big pickup they got last year, was injured in the playoffs, and people forget how important he is to their offensive production. Yeah. And then Jordan Clarkson took a step this year and has proved to be the best bench player in the NBA right now. Just the production they're getting from these other guys. Everyone seems bought in. Mike Conley seems more confident in his role there. And this team just seems a lot better than they were last year. And I'm disappointed in myself because I picked them on our thing. I had them really, really fucking low in our.
You picked them to make the playoffs?
I did pick them to make the playoffs, but we're doing power rankings, and I had them ranked low. I thought they were a first-round exit, but they're surprising me this year. And I think they've got, if everyone stays healthy, I hope they stay healthy. They're going to be a really tough out in the playoffs. No.
I think they're a very scary team to play. They seem like a really intimidating team to play because you mentioned it. Obviously Mitchell, like their guard plays really well. Mike Conley, Jordan Clarkson, Mitchell, Bogdanovich, more of a forward, but he can handle the basketball. But I think what makes this team very intimidating is guys like Rudy Gobert, Derek Favors, and Royce O'Neal. Those three guys, they just do their job. They don't try to be special. They just go in there. Quinn Snyder tells them what to do, and they just do their job. Royce O'Neal, he's more than happy in putting up like 8 points a game. Same as Derek Favors. There's kind of those stocky, bigger forwards, 6'7", 6'8", who they do their job. It's just that simple.
And I'm going to take it one step further here because with this team, when you look at the two best teams in the West from last year, the teams that played in the Western Conference Final, they both have a very powerful interior threat, right? Anthony Davis and Nikola Jokic. And they also don't have great guard defense on the perimeter. That's two things that they lack. And so when you look at this Utah team, they've got a good defense. They've got a guy in the inside who can, despite not being great in the pick and roll, is really good at playing big men down low in the post and deflecting shots and, just getting in the way of paint production for teams. And then you look at Donovan Mitchell, who can torch any guard on the perimeter because he's one of the best guards in the NBA. They've got a perfect formula to take down one of those two teams, or at least give them a run for their money, right? They took that Denver team to 7 games last year. They were up 3-1. They were really close to beating that team, and if they beat them, they might beat the Clippers too. We don't know.
It's interesting because the way the standings are right now, the Utah Jazz would make the conference finals, I think, pretty easily, and we would get a Clippers and Lakers battle in the second round of the playoffs.
That's what we want to see, man. That's what we want to see. That's the truth.
Because the Clippers would have to beat the Suns, the Lakers would have to beat the Grizzlies, as the standings are right now.
That's assuming that the play-in has no effect, right?
Play-in would have Warriors, Rockets,
and the lower teams. Yeah, so I think the Warriors can end up being a team in the playoffs just because they can beat any team in one game for sure.
Yeah, for sure. That's Coach of the Year. Shout out Ty Lue, I think, as well. Ty Lue's having a great year as a Clippers head coach. Steve Nash you say it's easy to coach the Brooklyn Nets because they have so much talent, but it's in many ways more difficult just to manage the players you guys got.
It's hard to manage their egos, that's for sure.
Real quickly though, maybe 5 minutes. Let's spend some time talking about the disappointing and surprising teams so far this year. What are some teams that you thought have jumped out at you in a good way so far this year?
You know what? I want you to take surprise teams because I want to go on a rant for disappointing teams because I got a team in there that I care about. So you start with the surprise teams.
I wonder what team that is. All right, surprise teams. Utah Jazz, obviously. 76ers, I think now it's easy to look at Philadelphia and be like, well, obviously look at the talent. But going into the year, we're like, yo, Philadelphia, based off of how they played in the playoffs last year, they're not that good. The Cavaliers, the New York Knicks, both playoff teams right now in the Eastern Conference, despite having a losing record. I put the Memphis Grizzlies in there with an asterisk. They're a 6th seed in the West, but they haven't played since like the 18th, so it's hard. It's been like 2 weeks since they played. They played today against the Spurs though. Speaking of the Spurs, I got to put them in there. My San Antonio Spurs. We are going off this year. We have beaten the Lakers. We have beaten the Clippers. We have beaten the Trailblazers. We have beaten the Denver Nuggets. We have beaten the Boston Celtics. You name a good team, we've beaten them. We have lost to the Timberwolves and the Pelicans, though, and the Houston Rockets' bench. But that is neither here nor there, okay? We got Patty Mills, fucking baller.
We forget about those ones, all right? We forget
DeMar DeRozan.
We only remember the good wins.
Bro, I'm telling you, this team is so fucking sick, bro. DeJounte Murray, young buck. Keldon Johnson, the fucking 28th pick, I think it was last year in the draft, sophomore. This team, top to bottom, Lonnie Walker, these young guys are balling out. And we got the veterans like DeMar, like Aldridge, like Patty, coaching up these young guys, and we look really good. Jakob Poeltl, by the way, the fucking guy who came over in that Raptors trade. Jakob Poeltl is shooting like 22% from the free throw line, which is stupid. He is ass.
He's not that good. I'll be real. I didn't think he was a good prospect. I didn't get that.
He's a good, I think he's a good center, but shooting free throws? Never. Last night in the Nuggets game, 5 minutes left in the fourth quarter, they hack a Shaq, fucking Jakob Poeltl, down by 10. And what does he do? He goes to the free throw line and bricks both free throws. Like, they hack a Shaq him, bro. Like, he's at half court and they foul him on purpose. That's just how bad he is of a shooter from the free throw line, but whatever.
Yeah, all right, yeah. I agree with your list, 100%. I agree with your list, 100%. Yeah, Spurs were on my list. Thunder, too. I don't think you mentioned them. They definitely deserve to be in the conversation. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander has been balling out. I thought they were going to be the worst team in the NBA, and they happens to still be the Timberwolves and the Wizards. So I don't know how the hell that happened. And that actually transitions me perfectly into my disappointing teams because the Wizards, they suck. I don't get it. I'm going to be honest with you. I'm going to give you guys a bit of a picture of what I picked when I made some bets this year. I bet on, and this sounds crazy, but I bet on the Wizards to win the title because it was crazy odds. There goes my $1, bro. I put $1 on the Wizards to win the fucking title. And I thought
how much money you put on the Wizards.
It was like 5,000 to 1, bro. It was like 5,000 to 1 or 50,000 to 1. I was like, I'm gonna put $1 so I could win potential $500. Worst decision.
It's actually hilarious, though.
Just saying.
Hilarious.
No, I actually did it too, and I was like, damn. Yeah, I'm gonna tell my kids. I bet on the Wizards. You know, I thought, fuck, man.
I unironically bet on the Washington Wizards in the championship. Anyway, yeah. How about let's go? Yeah, maybe like 3 minutes talk, or however long you want to take on the Raptors. Just real quick here. Let's go.
All right, yeah, I'll just quickly list off the Heat. They don't really count because their injuries and health stuff. Pelicans have been disappointed. I thought they'd be better. Blazers have been a bit disappointing. I thought they were going to be a good seed. They obviously face some injuries, so another team with an asterisk. But the Raptors have no excuse here. They've missed a few guys for a few times, but yeah, it's been a disappointing year for the Toronto Raptors. They just, they win a game, they win a big game, then they lose like 5 straight. They lose to the Kings last night. They play no defense, but they play a lot of offense because they don't play any defense. Like the Kings literally don't play any defense. You can walk into the paint. Rashawn Holmes is not going to block you. He's going to go like this. He's going to literally go like this. Let you take a layup. He's going to go like this. He doesn't give a shit. He's going to let you have the layup every time. And Marvin Bagley's a stiff out there too on defense. He doesn't do shit. And the Raptors still lose. Like, what? Are you kidding me? They make a big run. Did you see the tech at the end of the game too? That pissed me off.
Yeah, like on Kyle Lowry, yeah.
But at the same time, fans are getting a little too upset about that because the Raptors were going to lose either way. They're down 3. De'Aaron Fox had a free throw to ice the game. They're probably going to ice that game anyway. The odds of the Raptors winning were low. But yeah, they've been disappointing. 7-12. They started off 2-8. They kind of made their way back, and then now they've hit another slide. They lose to the Bucks. They lose to Miami with no one there, like literally no one except Bam. But I know you got to go, and I could talk about the Raptors all day, but fuck, man, the Raptors.
I'm just sighing and
man, it's just been disappointing, and it's one of those things where you don't know what they're gonna do. You know what I mean? Like you don't know what the next path is. You don't know. Like I don't understand why you don't get involved in that 4-team deal and pick up a guy like Jared Allen and throw in like a Norman Powell or someone who's actually like they only had to give up Torian Prince and they gave up Jared Allen, but what the Cavs had to give up to get that was like such a small price.
That happened.
I don't get how that happened. Why doesn't Masai Ujiri say, hey, we'll give you Norman Powell. Take him. He makes $10 million. He averages 15 points per game. Give us Jared Allen. He fills in the center spot. The Raptors can get some young guys off the bench like Terrence Davis, like Malachi Flynn in there. Get them to play some minutes, some young guys who have some potential. But nah, he's just like, I'm going to just chill. He's like, I don't give a shit. Maybe he's leaving at the end of this year. Maybe he's just like, I'm going to chill. I want to just dip, go to New York or something. I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, Cleveland, obviously I think Jared Allen's on a shorter contract, but the fact that they gave up I think it was a first-round pick that wasn't even theirs, it was Milwaukee's, and what was his name? Dante Exum. They got back Jared Allen and Torian Prince. It makes no sense. They just like it's like when there's like a phone call and someone else picks up on the other line and they can hear and everything you're saying. It's pretty much the exact same thing. They just like kind of snuck into the trade and were like, yo, let me just offer this and see what we get back. And just Jared Allen and Torian Prince fell into their lap. Magic. I don't know how the fuck they made that shit happen. If they could make that shit happen back in like 2010, LeBron would have stayed. Easy. But yeah, that's any closing thoughts real quick here?
My closing thoughts are tonight's going to be a nice game between the Lakers and Celtics. That's a must-watch game tonight.
2 teams that Spurs have beat this year.
That's all right. I respect that. If they beat both those teams, that's pretty good because they only play the Celtics like a couple times, right, every year. So if you beat them in the one time you played them, did they only play them once, or did they play them twice?
They played them the other night.
All right. So yeah, I mean that's going to be exciting, but I think that this won't age well. Our list that we made because it's so early in the season. If we had done this like a week or 2 weeks earlier. Quinn Snyder probably won't even be in the conversation just to give you some hindsight about what's going to happen. So, listen to this as soon as possible because that's my advice to the fans out there. The longer you wait, the worse it sounds.
Yeah, exactly. People are going to come back at the end of the year and like, yo, they were talking.
Like, bro, you picked Embiid. It's like, oh yeah, okay. It's like, fuck. All right, chill, man, chill. Like what? Like he's been balling. He's been an MVP right now. He's an MVP. Right?
Love that impression. Yeah. Anyway, that's it from us. Episode 13 of the Off the Dome podcast was great. Anthony, anytime you want to come on, please do because it's a lot.
Bro, let's do it more, man. We got to do it more. We got to get more consistent on a weekly basis. I'm down to be on here.
And yeah, that goes to anyone out there. If you're listening, you want to come on the podcast, and you have a nice following on social media, I'll hit you up.
You need a nice following, though. At least 1,000 followers. That's the min.
No disrespect to people who don't, but like, I'm trying to get shout-outs out here. You know what I mean? Like, God, chasing the bread.
Chasing the bread, bro. You already have 40-something K on TikTok and growing. You're gonna be at 50K before we know it.
No.
I had 40K last October, and now I have like 41K. I just like didn't grow for 4 months.
It's because did you take that thing out of the bio where you buy the fucking Dude, you take out the thing because you had that thing in your bio where you were gonna buy fucking like Irish Spring. Did you take that out?
I did, but that was like recently. It's because I like stopped posting my normal content, and then posted content that I spent hours on, like the top 50 and 50. And because that content was like better, is more well edited and took longer to make, it gets no engagement, right? That's how TikTok works. Brilliant. Anyway,
they're amazing. Like the content's amazing, but the people who follow you want you ranting. You know, that's what they want. So you got to give them what they want, man. Just be consistent with your rants and shit. Just go crazy. TikTok's a beautiful place for you to be crazy, man. So just keep doing what you're doing.
Anyway, that's that from us. Mike Dean, Kanye, hit him with outro music.
Let me get more volume.